Afternoon, everybody. Today's a little bit different, lunch and learn, because I want you all to enjoy yourself and sit back and relax. And as I like to say to everybody, welcome to my world. Because one of the things I'm doing today is I didn't prepare a PowerPoint, not just because I'm lazy, but maybe a little bit of that too. I also thought it's better for me not to share a screen so that you can see things, but to require you to hear things, because that is how I work with any type of documents, how I work on the internet, how I read email, and I'll be going through some examples. And what you'll hear over the speaker, I've turned my screen reader off the sound card so that you can hear it through the speaker, through my microphone, what JAWS sounds like. So you'll be getting a very similar experience. Now, when there are elements on the screen that may be very helpful for you to able to see, I will describe very carefully, because I've been using screen readers, oh gosh, really showing my age here, since 1997. And I've been teaching that screen reading software for that long. I currently use JAWS for Windows, version 2021, so I try to keep up to date. But before I get into the actual demonstrations, let me first tell you where I'm from. I'm from TechAL, which stands for Technology Our Whole Lives. And like Naomi is from New Jersey, we are also a part of the same team as in Assistive Technology Act programs. So we are the program that serves the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Our main office is located at Temple University, but we have 8 subcontractors that also provide services throughout the state, as we're a pretty large state. So with that said, my role there is at TechAL is information assistance. So if you are calling our 800 number, which is 800-204-7428, more likely than not, you'll get me, especially from the morning hours from 8:30 till 1 p.m. I'm the one who's the remote agent. We are all working remotely at this time because two things, because of Philadelphia's rulings and COVID, as well as the fact that we're in the luxury of getting new space, a new office space. And we have yet to move into our new office space. It should happen within the next few months. So with that said, stay tuned for our grand opening of our new office space. Same general area, just across the street in a different building, but it's very exciting times. So with that said, we're all working remotely, including answering the phones and answering email. I always joke and say that my commute is very easy. I come downstairs and sit at the computer. But I do miss seeing my friends in person, and I do miss, believe it or not, riding the train. Septo would love to hear that. But it's true. It's nice to have that break and be out in the community. So hopefully we'll all be doing that soon. So without further ado, let me start out by talking about some of the situations that we run into when you're using a screen reader. As I mentioned, I use JAWS for Windows, which is a proprietary software that I purchased. I've had a license since 1998 with JAWS for Windows. And so I've been using it for a very long time in all the different versions of the software. And again, they switched a few years ago to using the year, so I can always know what version I have because I keep it up to date. It's the current year. There are some free software out there, and I encourage people to explore if they want to really test out their documents or test out their websites or whatever, their PowerPoints, by going into and trying out either a free screen reader. There's one that you can download, which is called Non-Visual Desktop Access. It was as freeware, and I've been reading a lot about computer technology in a book recently, and so I'm learning all about how the freeware movement and shareware movement started up. So this is available for free. It is very similar to the keyboard commands that you would be using with JAWS for Windows. So it's one way to try out a screen reader for free, which you can turn off and on. But built into your computers right now, there are some really good screen reading alternatives. And that would be in the Windows platform. Now you go to Ease of Access Center, and then you turn on the screen reader is called Narrator. If you would have asked me 15 years ago about turning on Narrator, I'd say, well, if your JAWS crashes, turn it on so that you can get out of trouble. It wasn't very useful as far as working within applications, but all that changed in the past 5 years, especially in the past 3. They have a new accessibility team at Microsoft that have been working very much so on Narrator. So Narrator is really easy. If you're using a Windows computer, you use the hotkey of Windows, Control, and Enter, and that'll toggle it off and on. So keep that in mind. If you want to test something out using a screen reader, even if you're just using the rudimentary navigation using arrow keys or tab keys, that might be a good way just to know what it sounds like. So again, Windows operating system, the built-in screen reader is Narrator, and that's Windows, Control, and Enter. We'll toggle it off and on. And for our Mac lovers, yes, indeed, there's VoiceOver. And VoiceOver is Command, Option, and F5 to toggle it on. And there are other commands that can go into all the different settings for that. But they're built in right onto your computers, whatever you're accessing, including those that are using the mobile tablet devices, including the iOS tablets, iPads, but also the Android platform has another screen reader called TalkBack. And that you would enable in accessibility, or the first time you turn on a device. What's kind of cool about TalkBack is that it will ask you, if you hold down the power key, it'll ask you if you need to turn on TalkBack, and you can answer yes or no by tapping on the screen. So that's kind of cool, the fact that you launch that easily. Otherwise, you can turn it on under under settings and accessibility, and then TalkBack is their screen reader. So to give you an idea what screen readers do for those that are very new to this, is it literally intercepts the signal that goes to whatever is going to be displayed on the computer screen. So it's got almost like an intercept that sends the same commands that you would have for visual display, and interprets it and sends that information to a sound card and speech synthesizer. So really is just, we are hopefully getting the same information as long as it is coded or presented correctly. And we'll get into a little more details when we start playing around on the internet with that. But with what I'm going to start with first is some of the simple things to think about when you're trying to make things accessible with a screen reader. And I just spent literally a better part of the morning searching through all my documents to see if I have any PDFs that were just images. And the only PDFs that I have that were not images were receipts, for example, and other types of documents that I probably don't want to pull up and demonstrate with JAWS. The couple of things about that is that images are literally a photo. So if you take a document, for example, happened to me several times when I was in grad school, in fact, a few years back, where they'd scan it in using the printer, the scanner in the office. That is actually an image. My husband's notorious for doing this, by the way. He finds a great article in the newspaper, and instead of sending the link to me, he cuts it out and puts it on the scanner and sends it off to me. Well, then the problem is that's an image. Screen readers only are looking for text. They're not looking at the image, or unless there's image associated with that, text associated with that image. So what happens with documents that have been scanned in and not converted to have a digital text through what they call optical character recognition, when I open it up, it says, page appears to be blank. Well, now apparently under Adobe systems, which is what I have on here, the message is now reading, and I just tried that out this morning, and it reads that we see that you're using assistive technology. in order for you to read this document, we'll have to perform an operation to render it as text. Yay. I use Adobe Acrobat as my default, Acrobat DC. So it will automatically see that and then let me know that I need to convert it to using their recognition software that's in there. So what does that mean for you if you are preparing documents and sending it as a PDF? Well, if you're going to scan something in, keep in mind that this is still a picture. So you will have to manipulate this one way or another if you want it to be able to be read by, say, Adobe Reader. It needs to have optical character recognition done. And there are several programs out there that can do that, but obviously the most common one is Adobe Acrobat DC. And you can perform optical character recognition on it in order for it to, and then save that document before sending it off or posting it on the internet. So that, again, it won't read image, it will only read digital text. So it'll need that process done. But if you're talking about something that you've already created in your word processor on your computer, yes, you can save it as a PDF. And yes, it will be read by a screen reader. Now, I know 3 of you in the crowd just went, huh? How does that happen? Well, what happens is you've created the document already as a digital text file. So what it means is it's already text. And so when you save it as a PDF, it's going to save it up as a text file within this PDF. So it will see the letters. And so the screen reader does have opportunity. So if you're creating original content and you need to upload it somewhere, say if you're doing a presentation somewhere or a meeting somewhere, or you're sharing information, via listservs or email, keep in mind that if you create the document, you can't save it as a PDF and attach it to an email or upload it at a website because it is already text. So it's not going to take that away from it. So 2 things to keep in mind. If you're going to scan it in on the scanner, you'll have to perform something to make it so that it's no longer a picture, but also text. If you are creating a document in your word processor, you can save it as a PDF file and it will be read. Through big takeaways about PDFs. Protected document format is something that's very common, and I understand why it exists. It's so that people don't inadvertently edit your own material or covertly or inadvertently do it. So they manage to change the content on the document. So that's what the protected document format came about for that particular reason. You'll find it frequently at government publications, for example, will be a PDF document. And right now, my percentage of getting documents from anything that has a .gov or US extension on it, I would say we're running about 50 to 60% that they're already converted as an optical character recognition or created as a text. So a lot more of the information now that the government is posting is actually now accessible. I say 50 to 60%. So we still have some errors going on there, but investing in either Adobe Acrobat to do the conversion is good. But the good news about JAWS for Windows is not free. We all know that it can be kind of costly. But one of the nice new features in JAWS for Windows, in case people that are using it or at least know about it, is there is a feature that if that document is saved and you try to open it up from, say, Windows Explorer or File Explorer, one of the options in the context menu key, if you are running JAWS, so the context menu is either the button on your keyboard, the key on your keyboard, or Shift F10. You're learning a lot of keystrokes today, huh? Shift F10 is the context menu key. And if you are running JAWS, it will actually, one of the options in a list is to perform a convenient OCR. And that is something that's built into JAWS. And originally just did one page and you kind of got an idea what the document was. Now actually it can do the entire document. So for those of us that are using screen readers, this is another way to get your document read to you. It won't, I don't believe it permanently saves it as an OCR file. It basically reads it for that time being, but I could be mistaken. I think originally it was only just to read it. But it may have the opportunity now. So again, that's a note that I'll have to look up whether it will, you can save it then as a document that's been converted. So there are, a lot of ways that you can get these PDF read. And again, a lot of the strategies, VoiceOver, for example, will do its very best to read it. I don't know if it has a feature automatically to change it to digital text files. So that would be something your Mac lovers will have to experiment a little bit with. At the end, we're going to open up some time for questions on answers, or put, hey, you can do this, and this is how. I greatly appreciate it, because again, I'm not a native Mac user. I only get on ever so often. Windows is my platform of preference. Anyway, with that said, let's move on. So when you talk about creating these, accessible documents, there's some things also to think about, even just when you create it in Windows, in Microsoft Word, which is probably the predominant publication software that's out there. Even the Mac users are often using the Office suite on their PCs, or their MacBooks. So with that said, there's some things in Microsoft Word to think about that may be important for navigation, accessibility, for people to read through. When I get a very long email, or if I get a very long document, and if it doesn't have any style format structures in it, it is very tedious to find things. Yeah, I know some Windows commands where I can do a Control F to find, and we'll find a word. But do I really want to take that time to go find things word by word? It's so much easier if a document is structured so that I would have some navigation. Screen readers allow us to have some navigation in a document, much like you'd be skimming down the page. By the way, JAWS did add a new skim feature, which I haven't practiced too much with, but that is another option out there too. So it's kind of like speed reading, only it's kind of skimming portions of a document. But I prefer to go by the original style sets that are included in Microsoft Word. And I have a document that I'm going to rotate to. You're not going to see it because I'm not going to share it. And you're thinking, why isn't she sharing the screen? Well, it goes back to what I said before. Welcome to my world. I can't see anything on the screen right now. So we're going to be on an equal footing here. So let me pull up a document here. I'm going to rotate to one.
Task switching to move to JAWS Proficient accessibility example with font style format Word. Accessibility example with fonts.
What I did was I created a document. Actually, I pulled this. It's really kind of an interesting title. I pulled it off the internet. I pasted it into Word. I took out all the formatting that actually came with it when I copied and pasted, so that you get an idea of what it might be. And by the way, you probably heard JAWS say that I alt-tabbed, and it was going through the different files that are open. I'm only using the keyboard. A mouse doesn't mean anything to me because I can't see the pointer. So even though it's sitting here on my desk, it's only my rescue when someone has to help me out, as I like to say. So I've got a document open, and I'm going to read the title.
Title is accessibility example with font style format Word. Print 2. Okay,
so you can tell the screen reader is telling me a lot of information with a command that is a JAWS centric command. It is the JAWS key and T will read the title of whatever file is open. So I always teach my students when we're learning screen readers is, that's probably one of the first commands you should learn, to know where you are. So what file is open at the time? So a lot of times if I have many files open, it's not unusual for me to hit the, the JAWS key and T to find out which file I'm actually working at the moment. So what I'm going to do is one of the navigation commands that you use in JAWS is to the say all command. And again, that's going back to that JAWS key, and they're all run off the number pad. So you turn off the keypad. You heard me say the num lock was off. So I'm going to now go and just start reading down this page using JAWS with one of the screen reading commands.
Providing multiple ways for students to gain knowledge, demonstrate knowledge, and interact goes a long way toward making a course accessible
I'll
to all
slow them down.
students. Providing multiple ways for students to gain knowledge, demonstrate knowledge, and interact goes a long way toward making a course accessible to all students, including those with disabilities. Accessibility efforts benefit not only students with disabilities, but also students who are English language learners and those working in noisy or quiet environments. Universities had to resolve a civil rights complaint about the inaccessibility of its information technology, including technology youth language.
Okay, I'm going to stop him right now. And it did slow him down so people could people that use screen readers, and I don't even listen to it at that terribly fast rate. I'm probably around 60%, whereas some of my friends and colleagues that have been listening to screen readers for a long time, it's much quicker than that. And think about when you're looking at a document visually, you're probably, again, you're reading saccadically, so you're reading several words at a time or a line at a time. Think about old Evelyn Wood, with the speed reading course. This is what happens with people that are using a screen reader and speech synthesis. They actually speed it up pretty fast, and they still have their comprehension. I'm somewhere around 60% just because I feel comfortable there, but this is now turned down to probably about 40. I didn't check the rate, but it is probably about 30 or 40 at the speaking rate, and it can go slower. It's a little too painful for me, however. So as you heard, it just start reading from top to bottom. That's what screen readers will do. They'll start at the cursor point, go from left to right, and then to the next line and left to right, all the way down the page. So read from top to bottom. You can, obviously there are some commands that work when you get into a table, and we'll have a little bit of a demonstration of that in a bit too. But let me now rotate over to the document that has some formatting. Right now, actually, let me try this first. I'm going to use a screen reading command that will open up a secondary window, and it'll tell me if there's any links. And it'll also tell me, then the other command will tell me if there's any headings, which is the format style structure I was talking about.
Unlock off.
Okay.
Word center dialog.
Oops,
Search
got wrong.
bar escape. Accessibility example without.
Sorry about that. Where am I? See, I'm lost on my file.
Gray, not white.
Right.
There are no headings in this document.
Okay, no headings.
There is currently an open JAWS tile escape out of field. Links list dialog. Links list to https://edu/article/20.
So you heard there was a link. That was what you heard when I was reading it slowly, word by word. So it'll actually take links that are on a page and put it in a separate window. You heard that there was an open dialog box open. I did that deliberately because you cannot, yeah, sort of, but you cannot have two at the same time. So what this means is that on the screen, if you could see it, and I can't see it either, there is actually a secondary window that takes all the links. In this case, is the links so that you can navigate down.
Connection is unstable.
Oh boy. So I'm going to get out of this right now.
Escape, edit.
Okay, so now I'm back to edit. So I'm back into the document. I'm going to rotate to the next document.
Task switching to move to an item post-it and left bracket expert inbox dash dual accessibility example with style format dash words.
Okay, now this one has some style format in it. So let me do that same command with the to find whether it has any headings.
JAWS version 2021.2103.174 ILM. Move to heading, cancel, sort headings, and tab order alphabetically. Display all headings, level 4 headings, level 1 headings, level 5 headings, level 2, civil rights complaints, (1, 2 of 3. Strategies for making online learning accessible, (1, 3.
Okay, so what I did was I put made headings out of these different sections. So if I wanted to go to the part about the civil rights complaints, I can automatically, if I choose that heading to move to that setting, it will automatically move to that heading. And then I could read from then on using that same say all command, which would read down. You can also read again line by line.
Excerpts taken from Online link, HTTPS link, dash civil or legal base page 2, code accessible, code means of
Okay.
information, engage in the same interactions and enjoy the same services as.
So you can read by line, or you can use the say all commands to go back and forth. So what's important about this is that if you are going to be putting links in a document, now granted, that was a full HTTP link. That was, I just copied and pasted there. It's really okay because in context, I kind of got the idea what it was, but it's more helpful to have a better tag label on a link. And we'll talk more about this when I go on the internet, and we'll be hopefully my bandwidth being little limited here, hopefully won't be a problem to do that. I'll go into Microsoft Edge and we'll experiment a little bit with that. Let's go into some websites. But what that said is having these headings, styles put in there. Also, let me go up to the top of the document. There's also here, I did put in a list of, you might have heard when you start reading about the college and universities, some of the complaints that were filed, or things to know about. It was just continuing on and on and on. So there was really, it was meant to be bulleted. Let's put it this way. You can tell when things, you just want to make a certain point. So that's what the bullets are all about, right? So let me go down to where that part of it's on the bullet in the page.
Level 1. Bullet lessons learned from campuses nationwide forms and 1.
Okay. Okay, so you told me that was the heading.
With the Americans with this, bullet lessons learned from campuses.
There you go, bullet lesson.
Bullet lessons learned from campuses nationwide forms and 1. Approach to compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act during the process of online course design. Bullet providing multiple ways for students to gain knowledge, demonstrate knowledge, and interact goes a long way toward making the course accessible to all students, including those with bullet providing multiple ways for students to gain knowledge, demonstrate knowledge, and interact goes a long way toward making the course accessible to all students. Lang. Okay, so you got the idea that it actually then recognized that it was a bullet, and it did say the bullet point. Much like the fact if you did something that's, I could also change this into numbers if I wanted to. And that way it would recognize, the screen wheel will recognize it. This is a list. Otherwise, instead of reading 1 dot such and such, and then continue on, it's a 2 dot, it'll actually recognize it as a list. And so then you'll know that you can navigate through the list, and it's actually more comprehensive than listening to it all strung together. So these are some of the structures that are already available to you in your word processor. I use an example of Microsoft Word. Probably that's what is most common anyway that people are using nowadays. I believe there are similar type of features within Pages and other word processors that are out there. But think about these styles as and applying them. And before you say, well, where do I go to find them? The style formatting options are up on the menu bar, and the ribbons, go up to the ribbons. And then most of them are located under Home. So if you go Alt-H and then go down to the ribbon sections, I just managed to walk through or tab through to find different options that are in there. Depending on how much you've included in the ribbon, you might have to do more navigation through it. I have a lot of things now loaded up in my ribbons, unfortunately. Sorry about that. An Outlook message just came in. And show up on there, as different options that you can select. Some of the styles examples could be title. You can select text and make it titles, and you can also do headings. So with your permission, I'm going to try and get out of some of these other things so that the bandwidth gets better. So bear with me 1 second. Jaws accessibility posted and read left bracket box dash jewel dot and dot Lieberman alt F4. Jaws accessibility posted and D zoom meet accessibility. Jaws accessibility example without posted and D dash zoom meeting. All right, back to my meeting. So
I was making sure that I didn't have Microsoft Teams open as well, because that is a bandwidth hog at the same time. My entire office, we work remotely, so we're all working on Microsoft Teams. But if I'm doing a presentation, I have to remember to close out of Teams so that it's not competing with the Zoom connection. So, okay, so we talked about preparing documents and making them as accessible as possible. Some really good resources to find out how to do this. One of my favorites is at a WebAIM, and that group has a lot of great information about making documents accessible. But believe it or not, there's several, and I believe we may have posted some that Tom can speak of and let me know for sure, some links that we come across over time, even just within Microsoft, and how to make things accessible. In all fairness to Microsoft, as well as Apple, they've been really working hard to provide options for people to create documents or make it their work with their accessibility features work much better. So Microsoft support has a lot. I spent, I hope I'll share a quick story about Microsoft Disability Desk. There is a Microsoft Disability Help Desk, and they are helpful. And one of the great features about Microsoft, and I say that with, and also Apple too, and I say this very tongue in cheek, is that they're great for making changes and innovations. Fortunately, that means you have to learn exactly where things are put, things get moved around, operations change. And I was preparing a lecture because I'm teaching a class this summer. And I was inserting images, which is, by the way, a fun task to do when you're blind anyway. But I do have some files that I've saved, images of things that I have labeled, so I know what they are. So I was inserting some images. And when I inserted it in the document, for example, the first thing it said to me was that the alt text, which is the description that comes with an image, that is behind the scenes. So no one sees the print, but the screen reader gets that information. And so the screen reader will read it aloud. And now in Office 365, in the updated version, it automatically does alt text. And you're all saying, oh, that's great, saves me some work. Not exactly. You do want to check the alt text because it is done by artificial intelligence. And our artificial needs a lot more intelligence, shall we say. For example, I took an image of a bold line paper tablet, pasted in my document, and the automatic generated alt text said it was an air conditioner. The only thing I can think of is because it has lines across the screen. I guess they thought it was a vent. I don't know. So bear that in mind. If it does say that it's creating an automatically generated alt text, whether it's in a document or if it's something that you're using on the internet or in social media with Facebook, their chances are the alt text, until it gets much more intelligent, they'll have to change. So I inserted 17 images in this lecture in PowerPoint that I was using for my lecture. So I had to go in and change all 17 because none of them were correct, but it's okay. You know, again, this is coming along. I appreciate the fact that they are trying to make it easier. If anything, it reminds us that alt text is important. So what is alt text? Alt text is an opportunity for anytime you use a graphical image, it could be a photo, it can be a chart, it could be a diagram, that you can actually then put a label that's behind the scenes so that it's more descriptive than just saying insert captions. When you insert a caption, it'll say figure 1 or image or whatever, it comes with it automatically, and then you name it. But that's just a name. It's not a description. So when someone gives me a file that has a bunch of images in it and they're not described, frequently I will get the code for the image itself. So I get a lot of gobbledygook and computerese, and I have no idea what that is. So creating a good alt text is really important if you want that message to get across to the individual that's reading it, all people. And I know you're probably saying, well, do blind people really care what's in the image? Well, if it's important enough to be included in your message, it's important enough to let me know why it's there. So, we all get into discussions. What is alt text? In fact, when I changed the one alt text, it told me I didn't give it enough information, which I thought was kind of amusing. I'm fighting with my Microsoft computer here. It's telling me I wasn't describing it enough. So I had to add more verbiage in it to complete that alt text. But you don't necessarily need to tell everything that's in the picture. That's not important. For example, in the lecture, I put an image of me, a photograph of me, just because I thought it would be nice if people got a chance to meet me, whether it be virtually, and have an idea who they're talking, who's going to be talking to them, who they're going to be working with. So I put an image of myself in there, not just because I'm narcissistic, but because the fact I did want to have that connection. So in the image, I then clicked on the alt text, and I did that. Microsoft changed the way you do that now in Microsoft Word if you're using a keyboard. So for us keyboard folks out there, and I probably have a few on the line here today, in order to change the alt text or create an alt text for an image, to select that image now, you go to Alt H, which is go to the ribbon, the home ribbon, and you use the letters S as in Sam, L as in Larry. So it's Alt H S L, and then the letter P. That'll open up the panel that has the objects that or pictures that you're looking for. Then you can select the picture. I say try to do it as you are inserting the images so that you don't have to figure out what images, with what description, other picture 1 compared to picture 15. So, because it won't give it a name, it will just tell you picture 1, picture 2. So go in there, and then once you're there, you enter on the item that you want to select. And then you can do the context key. And in the list in that context key, again, for our mousers, that's the right mouse click. For our keyboard folks, that is Shift F10. And you go down the list, and one of the listings in there, among other things you can do, is to edit alt text. And once you press enter on that, make that choice, you'll be automatically put in the description field. In previous versions of Microsoft, they had a type for the image, but they've eliminated that because it just added more confusion, because people would just put a title in there and not put a description in. So going back to this illustration of my image, what I did was then I entered on the description. The automatic text, I think it said that it was a person standing in front of a wall. Okay, that's just not enough description for me to really get the message across. So I, said that I gave my name, and I said that I was a woman with white hair, a smiling woman with white hair and brown framed glasses, wearing a red sweater and a blue shirt. Now, the only reason in standing in front of a blue wall. Now, that was more description than maybe it was necessary, but it gave the person who's using a screen reader an idea that in some ways it was telling them that I was casually dressed. And that was really what the intent of that description was, to let me know that I'm a relaxed type of person as your instructor. So again, the message of the alt text is, what is the point that you want to get across with that image? So when I go into the description of the different images I put in this lecture that are all assistive technology for persons with vision loss, it was, does someone who's blind, who can't see the image, what's the most important thing for them to know about that particular image? So some of the descriptions were longer than others for obvious reasons. So with that said, alt text is very important. So if you're using a Word document or even a PowerPoint, make sure that you include alt text in the description, and also check before you send it off whether there's alt text have been created. And that you can do that through the accessibility checker. And if it has been created, you may want to check and see what that automatically generated alt text. Because had I not changed that bold line paper from an air conditioner, the students that were reading this using a screen reader go, why is there an air conditioner in this document? So again, that's kind of a little food for thought. And these things happen all the time. Things change. As a computer instructor, one of the things I would try to stress is you're going to learn one way and tomorrow you're going to have to do it a different way, because that's how the innovation and change goes. Sometimes it's something that makes things easier for you. Again, the attempt here is to make it easier for you to do an auto-generated alt text, although again, it's not quite up to snuff yet. But it also, again, keep in mind that it does require us to be a little thoughtful about how we do it. So talking to the Microsoft Disability Support Desk, and trust me, that person took us an hour because he had to find how to do it. But between the two of us, we managed to get the answer. He went right to the Office team, and then he connected them up. He connected them up with the accessibility team, and he got his answer after being on hold for a little while. So those are the kind of things that you'll have to be expected if you are using a screen reader. But let's try and make it easier for people that when you are opening a document or you're going on a website, make it so as accessible as possible before doing that. So let me see if I can get into Microsoft, or actually I could go, let me go, I can even try Google now that well, maybe I can't. Let me do Edge.
Search box edit. Microsoft Teams app. Press the switch. Find results in app. Microsoft Teams app. Press the switch. Preview.
I do want to.
Microsoft C O T E Microsoft Teams Microsoft Teams
Oh, come on. Let's start over.
C O F E Microsoft Teams Microsoft Edge. See work and web results.
See that funny? It just automatically went to Teams because that's where I was defaulted before. So let me go back to the desktop and then I'll rotate back. Okay.
Zoom.
Let me get this way because I don't want to jump onto Google twice because again, we're having bandwidth issues to begin with.
Windows T folder view list view Microsoft Teams. Item press the arrow. Show desktop button. Folder view. Type here the top task view button. Desktop notification. Show desktop folder view.
And I'm just tapping through that through my desktop screen.
Microsoft Edge 1350 enter. New tab dash Microsoft Edge app bar toolbar address and search bar edit search or enter web address type of text. Okay, so you can hear that there's a lot of information that JAWS is telling you automatically when you open up a document. It said it was Microsoft Edge, and it also told me that to type in a search term or to it's also giving me extra messages here, and that or type in a search keywords or type in a URL. Good example, I'm going to type our website. Select enter HTTPS.
This is already in the memory. It picked it up.
Selected. Page has 2 frames, 11 regions, 18 headings, and 272 links.
Okay, now you already heard that it had some headings. You already heard that it had over 200 links. So it's also giving me an opportunity then to demonstrate different links and different heading sections here that's on our website. I know I'm being very self-promotion here, but I'm a little kudos here because he works on our website, that we also do very much try to make it as accessible as possible. And remember, we're working with a very diverse population. We're working with individuals with all different kinds of disabilities. In addition to vision loss and blindness, we're also working with individuals with cognitive disabilities. So plain language is very important to us. We're also dealing with individuals that like to have a lot of content that has, quick access to content that are like newsworthy content. So that they want to look at this as a news page as well. So it's a very delicate task that, again, in our web design with Tom and Kim, strive to make sure that, again, it makes it an interesting site for people that are visual, but it'll also still make it accessible. So let's start with doing the headings list. I want to make sure I got the right keys here.
Heading list dialog. Headings list view. Echo colon 1 of 33 to move to
Okay,
item.
there's 33 headings. I keep hitting the control key to stop JAWS talking so we don't talk on top of each other.
Welcome to Tech Owl colon 1 2 of 33.
It says when it's welcome to Tech Owl 1, it says 1. That means it's a heading 1. Just like I showed you in the documents, I had only heading 1s in there.
Lending library colon 2 3 of 33.
Lending library is its own link, okay?
Community:2, 4 of 30.
And that's another link that we have. It's for the alternative and augmentative and alternative communications community website, which has a lot of great information about speech generating devices.
Get a demonstration:2, 5.
And you see we have listed our headings by content area. So some of the mistakes that you see at websites, especially when we get into the links list, are that they're not labeled correctly. So when you are putting things up in the internet, you are creating a website, you want to make sure that these things are labeled correctly. That's some of the, I say, failures of the accessibility checkers. Sometimes the accessibility checkers say, oh, well, all your links are labeled. Yeah, but if they're all labeled, click here, that doesn't help me much, okay? Because I'll get, as you hear, I have a list of 33 headings in this example. If they all said the same word, I would really have a tough time getting through that list. So let me get out of this JAWS window.
Escape.
And I'm now gonna go into that links list.
Links list dialog. Links list view. Skip to main navigation. 1 of 286.
Okay, 286. So I know that if I want to get to the lending library, for example, if I hit the letter B,
arrow 60 of 286.
Whoa, see, it was already 60 of 286. So by having it well labeled, thank you, Tom, and thank you, Kim, I can actually get very quickly to the link that will open up the page for the lending library. So there's also a page for
Degree designs inclusive deodorant. Deafblind services. 29 of
deafblind services. So I can go by single letter navigation to the particular link. If I press enter now, it will take me right to that section of the website, to that web page. So you can see that if I didn't do that, now let me do an example of going back.
Escape.
If I go to the top of the page,
technology for our whole lives.
And I started just reading down the page, okay?
Unlock off. Technology for our whole lives list of 2 items. Toggle by contrast, toggle button, toggle font size, toggle button, list of 3 items. Same page link, skip the main navigation. Same page link, skip the main content. Same page link, skip the footer. List end. Visit the current page link graphic logo for technology for our whole lives. Heading level 1 technology for our whole lives. Primary menu navigation region list of 6 items. Visit the current page link home link about. Okay, so that's a lot of information that I'll have to wade through before I even got to that. Remember, it was 66 or 60th link in that links list to get to the lending library information. So that's why having these links labeled correctly will allow us to be able to get there very, very quickly to get the information. I'm the type of person that I don't necessarily like to spend my time listening from top to bottom. The screen reader is reading from the very top of the page down. You may have noticed that there were 2 in WordPress, which is what this is created in. It does give you the opportunity to have a quick link to the navigation tree, a quick link to the main content, and all that would come up as well in that links list as I demonstrated earlier. But again, it does matter of getting to that point where you can go to that. You have to know what content you're looking for to begin with. So that's why having all your links labeled correctly with, again, words that make sense, make a big difference in the navigation on there. So some of the other things that are cool about websites that are important for someone to know when you're creating a website using a screen reader is that there are also some navigation keys built in. And I think it's pretty much across the board. I'd like to say for sure that NDVA does this, as well as a narrator. I would suspect they do. If not, they'll be doing very soon. That is a single key navigation to get to certain elements on the screen. For example, if I wanted to look for an edit box, I would hit the letter E. Search for : edit, search.
See, search for, edit. So it gives me the edit field. So if I press enter here and then type in what I'm looking for, and then I could then tab to the search key or just hit enter, it will take me to whatever content that has that search term in. So that's an edit field. So if there wasn't on this form, website, and I don't want to go into great detail on today because I want to make sure we cover, and I'll give you enough time to ask some questions. There are also options for form fields. And form fields are important to know about too. If I hit the letter F, for example, and if I was on one of our page links that had a form for me to complete, it would take then using the form field, I could then edit from by tabbing to each edit field to enter the text or hit the letter F, and that would take me to the next form field. So it gives you an idea how you navigate using a screen reader. The caveat I want you to take away today is, as far as accessibility and screen readers are, make sure that your form fields, your edit fields are labeled. Obviously, this is a great job. A good example, when we just did the edit field with the search field, it said it was a search field. I have been to websites where if I did the E command to get to an edit field, it just says edit. I don't know what I'm editing. And so having this well labeled, so it was a search field, it really helped a lot. Amazon actually is a pretty good job of doing this with the edit fields. I'll witness my bank account right now. So I can search for things very easily. And again, it all comes down to what tag is associated. What is that edit field labeled? So even though on the screen, it may have the words name next to that edit field, if it's not tagged, that edit field with that word name on it, okay, when you create that form, it's not going to mean anything unless that word is attached to it. So keep that in mind when you're doing any kind of forms online, that you want to make sure that that is tagged so that I would know what I'm editing. So I know that it's my name, it's my address. Drop-down lists are fine as far as the screen reader is concerned. So if you have things that you want people to options selection, it's okay to do that with drop-down lists. Usually they call combo box. And so screen readers can access that. They have to select it and then use the arrow keys to move down. Things that are less accessible are the things that are cascading in multiple cascades. So I can get to a menu, for example, or an option in a form that opens up a calendar, for example. And it's okay to do it if you hit the space bar and then use your arrow keys to get to the calendar dates. But it is very tedious to do it that way. So if you can make it as simple as possible for keyboard navigation when you're designing these things, the better off. We have a database system that we use at our office that's why my hair is gray at this point, because I spend a lot of time trying to search through areas where someone is picking up their mouse and clicking on something I don't have access to unless I do a very tedious keyboard navigation strategy. So bear that in mind when you're creating these things. Just because it looks good doesn't necessarily make it easier for somebody who's only using a keyboard. If you have only documents, if you have again, websites that you can only access through an image, then you are doing a disservice. So make sure that there's a link included in it, and it's also well described. So at this time, I know I've been running on and on here. I wanted to open it up. At first asked, I know Tom's on the call here, if it was possible, if there was any chat messages that we need to address first, and then we can open it up to questions directly. What do you say, Tom? Anybody had any chats?
No, the chat was very calm. There was a few things, but Naomi and I
you handled it. Good. Okay, that's good to hear. All right, so what we can do is if you want to raise your hand and ask a question, I'm sure there are some questions that have come up in your mind, either that or I've gone totally over your head, hopefully not. You can do that by clicking on the hand signal button on the tool for the Zoom meeting, or if you use a keyboard command, if you're using JAWS, you want to navigate to that toolbar, and you use if you're using JAWS, you use the Alt key, Shift, and Control and Shift, and that'll take you to the toolbar. And then you can use the Alt and Y command, and that'll raise your hand. So I'll give you a minute to see if you have any hands raised. And I really appreciate you guys taking this time to come. While we're waiting for hands to go up, if there is any, I do want to let you know that you can reach us at TechOwl. You can reach me at directly by my name. My name is 3 words altogether. So there's a space in between with a dot. So it's J-U-L-E, Jewel dot A-N-N dot Lieberman, Lieberman at temple.edu. And if you didn't have a chance to take that down, you can always contact us through our website. We have a chat feature at our website, which is wonderful, that we respond to. Now, I may not respond to it directly because it's a little harder for me to get to it by JAWS, but I get notifications if indeed I need to follow up with someone in the chat feature. But you can also reach us by using our general mailbox, which is TechOwl, TECHOWL, at temple.edu. Probably the easiest one to remember. So anybody have hands up, or did we lose everybody? They all go to sleep?
No hands.
No hands?
But I did put our emails in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that.
And Naomi put the Tech Owl email as well.
Wonderful. Let's see. What time is it? Oh, it's time to stand. So it's almost 1 o'clock, folks. So I really have kind of gone over here. So I appreciate the patience with people that stayed on for the long haul. If you have any further questions about this subject, or if you want me to walk through some of the requirements over the phone with you or through email and send you some links about how to make sure these things are accessible, I'd be more than happy to do that. But again, I always say, try out the screen reader. And again, on Windows, it's Windows key, Control, and Enter, turns on narrator. In Mac users, it's voiceover, Command, Option, and F5. We'll turn it on and off and turn it off and on. So I hope that was helpful. Naomi, do you have any other comments you